Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it's my absolute honor to be here today. I thank you very much for extending the invitation to this important business forum. And it's also wonderful to be here in Ethiopia, a country that in many ways captures and reflects the dynamic nature of the African economy today. So as was mentioned, I'm the Chief Investment Officer of an investment company called PIMCO. We manage about $2 trillion US dollars on behalf of investors all over the world, many institutional investors and retail investors alike. In Africa, for instance, we're invested in about 15 different countries at this moment in time, but we think there's a tremendous opportunity to do more. Please also let me thank Vera Songwe and the UN Economic Commission for Africa for inviting us to share our perspectives and to make the connections with you all that hopefully sow the seeds for further partnership and collaboration in the years ahead. Let me also begin by joining the UN ECA and Africa 50 in announcing the SDG 7 initiative for Africa. With today's announcement and our presence here at the African Union Summit and at this forum, we basically are signaling our commitment to collaborate, to explore investment opportunities in clean energy across the continent. We announced with two motivations in mind. The first is a business one. The second is a principle-driven one. First, for us, Africa represents a historic business opportunity. Unfortunately, it's an area of the world that too many global investors have overlooked. But yet, as the World Bank notes, the top 6 of the top 10 fastest growing economies are in Africa. And it's calculated now that there are over 400 companies that have annual turnover in Africa equivalent to over $1 billion each per year. Also, the African economy as a whole over the last decade has grown by 40%, which is really an amazing growth dynamic. And we think it's a signal for investors that we represent to spend more time looking at and investing in Africa. And of course, growth is important, but sustainable economic development is arguably more important. We all know that growth that's not inclusive, a growth that sows the seeds of inequality, instability, and discontent is not the type of growth that we want. So I'll not go into many of the challenges and hurdles facing the continent from a sustainability perspective. I think many of you know those issues better than I do. But I would like to highlight a key conclusion from a recent UN ECA report. And it states, successful implementation of the SDGs and Agenda 2063 will require an integrated approach that coordinates the efforts of all sectors of government working in collaboration with the private sector and civil society. And that's why we're here at this forum today. We think there's many things we can explore together, concrete ways that we can bring other private sector investors along with us and contribute to Africa's sustainable development vision. And this vision must, and I think you will agree, include evolution in energy provision, with an emphasis on clean energy and with the Sustainable Development Goal number 7 in mind. The lack of energy or traditional, whether it's renewable or traditional energy, is absolutely essential, as Vera mentioned, for everything, for healthcare, agriculture, education, and the economic diversification that everyone here seeks. So a bold initiative is needed to address the issue, and we applaud the UN ECA for taking up this challenge. The second reason that PIMCO is joining this initiative is rooted in our commitment to responsible investing. For example, we've signed the UN Global Compact 10 principles, We've also taken a leadership position with the UN-supported Principles for Responsible Investment. And indeed, sustainability and responsible investing is a firm-wide priority at our firm PIMCO, and it goes all the way up to the top of our firm in terms of our commitment for moving the markets along in that direction more quickly. We believe at PIMCO that we have an ethical imperative to focus on inclusive growth. And here's the reason why. By combating poverty, advancing gender equality, tackling climate change, and improving governance, we create the conditions for societies and economies to flourish. Please allow me just a few final reflections on the topic of governance. I do wish to state that we need governments and policymakers, especially at the national level, to create the proper enabling policy spaces and incentives for the capital to flow. These could include things like blended finance, co-investment opportunities, better transparency about the needs and priorities, and in some cases, finding new ways to share risk between governments and the private sector in a better way. We also need civil society to bring this expertise to work and to voice any concerns that people inevitably have with change. And one other thing that we fully embrace from the UNECA report is that this has to be a multi-stakeholder endeavor. The projects are too large, they're too ambitious, and so we feel we must work together. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, all of this is not just wishful thinking. It is a principle-based pragmatism that, in the words of one great African, Kofi Annan, it can give a human face to globalization. So I think it's time that we realized this vision by working together to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals, and especially SDG 7 and Energy for Africa. We greatly appreciate the opportunity to share our perspectives and look forward to having many more discussions in the day and weeks and months ahead. Thank you.